In the world of influencers, fame and fortune go hand in hand. But sometimes, behind the filters and the glamour, a much darker truth lurks. Lara Winters, a beloved influencer with millions of followers, didn't build her empire on trust alone. She built it on extortion. In this video, we'll uncover the shocking truth behind her $600,000 a month manipulation scheme. Stay tuned, because what you'll learn will change how you view the influencer world forever. Imagine following someone you trust for years, only to find out they've been secretly controlling your perception, blackmailing businesses for cash, and threatening careers. In today's video, we'll dive deep into Lara Winters' rise and fall, and by the end, you'll know exactly how she managed to fool millions and make millions in the process. Don't go anywhere. Lara Winters, one name that many recognize in the digital world. To the public, she was the picture of success. A lifestyle and beauty influencer, Lara made her fortune through sponsored posts, brand collaborations, and product placements. She was on the rise with nearly 2 million followers across Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Luxury brands begged for her endorsement, and fans admired her every move. From skincare tutorials to fashion hauls, Lara was living the dream of many. She had it all: the fame, the fortune, and the perfect online persona. Her fans adored her. They looked up to her as a role model, a woman who had figured out how to combine business savvy with personal charm. Her audience believed every word, trusted every product recommendation, and watched in awe as she revealed snippets of her lavish life. The influencer's world had welcomed her with open arms, but behind the filters and sponsored posts, something far darker was brewing. But this story isn't about fame. It isn't about another influencer who got lost in the world of brand deals and social media success. This is about how one influencer twisted that very success into a dangerous game, one that left a trail of destruction across the digital landscape. While millions admired Lara's glowing posts and dreamed of a similar life, a few knew the truth. Behind the scenes, Lara had perfected the art of manipulation. What began as harmless brand promotions would soon turn into something much more sinister. She wasn't just selling products, she was selling fear. She was selling control. Lara learned that her influence could be used to dominate, to extort, and to blackmail. And as she built her empire, she began using it for far darker purposes. Lara Winters became more than just an influencer. She became a manipulator. She used her vast network of followers and trusted partnerships to launch a series of extortion schemes. For every brand that made the mistake of working with her, there was a price to pay. Sometimes it was a promotional fee. Other times it was much worse. The truth is, Lara didn't just want money. She wanted something more. She wanted power. Power over people who trusted her. Power over the brands that worked with her. And most shockingly, power over other influencers who followed in her footsteps. In a world where influencers can control entire markets with a single post, Lara saw an opportunity to take that control to an extreme level. And it all began with one calculated move that would set off a chain reaction, a series of events that would end up costing millions of dollars. What starts as a seemingly innocent influencer story quickly spirals into a web of extortion, lies, and cybercrime. In the following moments, we'll break down how Lara managed to manipulate not just her followers, but the very businesses that trusted her. How she used fake scandals, hacking, and blackmail to create a financial empire, one that raked in over $600,000 every single month. Businesses cowered, influencers fell into her trap, and no one knew how deep this influencer's reach really went. But how did she do it? And how did her scheme go unnoticed for so long? To understand the shocking truth, we need to dive deeper into the twisted world of Lara Winters and see exactly how she created the perfect crime. Our first stop on this journey into the darker side of fame takes us to a small but rapidly growing skincare company, Brixton Cosmetics. This is where Lara's plan would begin to unfold. Brixton Cosmetics had no idea they were about to be targeted by the very influencer they thought would elevate their brand. Next, we'll break down how Lara's initial move to extort Brixton Cosmetics unfolded, how she built the web of lies, and how her carefully constructed persona began to unravel lives. But as we'll see, this was only the beginning. Lara Winters would not stop at one company. No, she would spread her influence far and wide, and what she did next shocked everyone in the industry. Stay tuned. Lara Winters seemed like a dream come true for millions, an influencer who built her empire from scratch, creating a following with beauty tutorials, lifestyle advice, and the occasional sponsored post. But what started as a glowing image of success would eventually reveal a much darker side. Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the Instagram feeds and Twitter posts? The truth might shock you. In the vast and constantly shifting landscape of social media, there are a handful of influencers who rise above the rest. They are the ones who have mastered the art of personal branding, curating their lives in a way that makes us feel like we know them intimately. Lara Winters was one of those influencers, a name that, to the millions of her followers, represented beauty, success, and influence. Her carefully constructed online persona made her the ideal figure for companies and brands looking to reach the ever-elusive millennial and Gen Z markets. Lara was a natural at making people feel like they were a part of her world. She didn't just promote products, she lived them. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated montage of high-end fashion, glowing skin, and sunny beach vacations. Every post, every story, every video was designed to elicit envy. Her followers saw her as the epitome of success, a young woman who had cracked the code of making money online while living a life many only dreamed of. Lara's journey into the world of influencers wasn't one of overnight success. Like many before her, she had to work hard to carve out her niche. She started with the typical influencer posts, outfit photos, beauty tutorials, and product reviews. But she quickly realized that the real key to success wasn't just about getting followers. It was about monetizing that following. She aligned herself with brands that understood the power of social media. Initially, these were smaller brands in the beauty and fashion sectors, companies looking for a new way to get their products in front of younger, tech-savvy consumers. Lara's first paid collaborations were modest. She would post about makeup brands, skincare products, and clothing lines. Slowly but surely, she began to build her reputation as an influencer who could deliver results, high engagement rates, increased sales, and a growing loyal audience. As Lara's fame grew, so did the brands she partnered with. By the time she hit 1 million followers on Instagram, she had already signed contracts with major global brands like Gucci, Chanel, and Sephora. For these companies, Lara was the golden ticket to a new demographic: the digitally connected, trend-conscious consumers who were increasingly making purchasing decisions based on online recommendations. Her brand deals escalated, and soon, Lara was earning 6 figures per collaboration. She became a key player in a space where followers, likes, and brand deals held immense power. It wasn't just about getting attention. It was about turning that attention into real-world influence and money. Followers were more than just numbers on a screen, they were a currency. The more followers Lara gained, the more power she held in shaping purchasing decisions, cultural trends, and even social media conversations. But with this kind of power came temptation. The temptation to use that influence for something far darker than simply promoting beauty products. From the outside, Lara's life looked like a dream. She posted photos from exclusive events, filmed makeup tutorials from her stunning penthouse apartment, and shared behind-the-scenes glimpses of her world with an adoring fan base. Each post was another step toward the perfect life. Luxury cars, private jets, designer clothes, everything screamed success. Her public persona was all about trustworthiness and authenticity. Lara would often share personal stories, talking about her struggles with body image, mental health, and overcoming adversity. To her followers, she wasn't just an influencer. She was a friend, a mentor, a role model. They felt connected to her, and this trust gave Lara an unparalleled level of influence. But this connection wasn't one-sided. Lara understood the psychological power of her presence. She carefully cultivated her image to make her followers feel as though they were part of something larger than just a brand endorsement. When she posted a skincare product, it wasn't just about the product itself. It was about the lifestyle she was selling. When she shared a new fashion line, it wasn't just clothes. It was a glimpse into the glamorous life she led. Her followers didn't just want to buy the products. They wanted to buy into the life she was living. Yet, Behind the well-lit Instagram stories and high-end sponsorships, a different story was unfolding. Lara wasn't just a digital marketer selling products. She was playing a dangerous game. While her public persona exuded happiness, success, and luxury, the reality was that she had begun to manipulate her audience, her business partners, and her fellow influencers in ways that went beyond typical advertising. Her massive reach allowed her to control entire markets. Brands paid her for access to her followers, but Lara didn't just stop there. She began leveraging her influence to control the narrative. If a brand didn't give her what she wanted, she knew exactly how to create a public relations nightmare. If a business failed to comply with her demands, she threatened to unleash a viral scandal that would ruin them. This wasn't just marketing anymore. This was manipulation at its finest. Lara's rise to fame was typical for an influencer. But the way she used that fame? That's where things took a sinister turn. At first, Lara's brand partnerships were simple. She received products, promoted them online, and was compensated. But as her empire grew, so did her influence. She realized that the real power wasn't in just promoting products, it was in controlling the brands themselves. Her success became a tool for manipulation. She didn't just want money from brand deals, she wanted more. She wanted total control. It started with small things. A rumor here, a scathing review there, just enough to throw a brand off course. But soon, Lara was creating entire scandals. When a company didn't meet her demands, she would orchestrate a public crisis, forcing them to pay her off to stop it. The truth didn't matter. Perception was everything, and Lara knew how to twist it. But it didn't stop there. As her reach expanded, Lara began targeting businesses that weren't paying her to promote their products. With the power of her followers, she could destroy reputations in a matter of hours. She didn't just promote luxury, she sold fear. Fear of the consequences if you didn't comply. Her power was intoxicating. She controlled not only what people bought, but how they felt. If she liked a brand, millions of people liked that brand. If she decided to expose a company for a faulty product, its sales plummeted. Lara was no longer just an influencer. She was a puppet master pulling the strings of businesses, consumers, and even other influencers. It wasn't long before Lara realized the full scope of her potential. She could create controversies, manufacture crises, and force businesses to comply with her demands. The price? A hefty sum of money, often more than most companies could afford to ignore. She could turn a small dispute into a $100,000 ransom, or an influencer's failed endorsement into a public meltdown that cost millions. And she wasn't just doing this for fun. This was her business model. Her rise to power wasn't built on talent or hard work alone. It was built on a web of manipulation, where trust was traded for money and influence was weaponized to destroy. While Lara's journey to the top of the influencer world seemed to follow the classic blueprint of success, her methods were far from typical. Behind the smiles and the luxury products lay a woman who had learned how to exploit the very system that made her famous. She didn't just gain followers, she gained control. She didn't just sell products, she sold fear and manipulation. And in a world where followers are currency, Lara Winters would stop at nothing to become richer and more powerful. Her rise to fame, fueled by fame itself, was the perfect setup for a much darker tale. In the next section, we'll dive into how Lara used this power to extort businesses and influencers, and how her cyber extortion schemes began to unfold, taking the influencer world and beyond by storm. What started as a simple partnership with a small but growing skincare company, Brixton Cosmetics, soon became the beginning of Lara's elaborate extortion plan. Brixton trusted Lara to promote their products. Little did they know, this partnership would cost them far more than they had bargained for. But what happened next was far from a standard brand deal. Lara wasn't just promoting products. She was planting the seeds for a much darker scheme. Let's take a look at how she started to manipulate the situation. The first victim of Lara Winters' dark web of manipulation was Brixton Cosmetics, a small but promising skincare company. Founded just a few years earlier, Brixton had quickly gained a following with its eco-friendly, all-natural skincare products. Their marketing strategy had been built on authenticity and quality. two things that resonated well with their target market of young professionals and eco-conscious consumers. They prided themselves on being an up-and-coming brand with big aspirations. Lara, with her rapidly growing follower count and a reputation for making brands go viral, seemed like the perfect influencer for Brixton. The company had been looking to expand its presence and reach a larger, global audience. Hiring an influencer like Lara was seen as a golden opportunity. She was a trusted name in beauty and lifestyle, and her endorsement was the kind of marketing dream every brand hoped for. The collaboration began as most influencer partnerships do. Brixton reached out, and Lara's team quickly negotiated the terms of their deal. She was to promote Brixton's new line of organic skincare products. At first, everything seemed perfectly aligned. She posted glowing reviews, featuring the products in her beauty tutorials and flaunting the brand on her Instagram stories. The engagement was off the charts. Likes, comments, and shares flooded in. Brixton felt they were on track to hit a new sales milestone, thanks to the influencer's powerful reach. But soon, something went wrong. Brixton's management had agreed to a payment plan for Lara's services, but as the campaign progressed, a dispute arose over the terms of payment. A few minor details, like the scope of her posts and the deadlines for deliverables, were left unclear. When Brixton's team raised these issues, Lara's response was swift and calculated. She wasn't interested in renegotiating the terms. Instead, she saw an opportunity, a chance to exploit the situation and leverage her immense power to control the narrative. Lara's methods of creating a fake scandal were meticulous and calculated. She knew exactly how to use her massive platform to fuel rumors, spread distrust, and turn even the smallest disagreement into a full-blown crisis. The first step in her plan was to launch a smear campaign against Brixton Cosmetics. At first, it was subtle. Lara posted a vague Instagram story claiming that her latest product was not as advertised. She didn't name Brixton directly, but her followers quickly connected the dots. Comments started pouring in. Is this the Brixton line? I think she's talking about that new skincare brand that just launched. The story went viral in a matter of hours. What started as a whisper soon became a chorus of accusations. Her followers, eager to engage, began sharing their own complaints about Brixton's products. Many of them were fake. Lara and her team had orchestrated these reviews, using fake accounts to bolster the illusion of dissatisfaction. In a matter of hours, Brixton's reputation was on the line. But that wasn't enough for Lara. She took things a step further. Using her influence and resources, she began targeting specific influencers who had worked with Brixton in the past. She reached out to them privately, telling them that Brixton's products were subpar and encouraging them to post negative reviews. Lara, knowing the power of social media to destroy or elevate a brand, had strategically planted the seeds of doubt. As her followers and other influencers began to question Brixton's quality, the company's carefully crafted image started to crumble. It was no longer just an innocent review, it was a movement. But Lara wasn't done yet. She had the perfect weapon at her disposal, her team of hackers. While the fake reviews spread like wildfire, Lara's team launched a cyber attack on Brixton's website. Sensitive customer data, names, addresses, payment details was exposed. Lara knew that the true damage would come from not just the bad reviews, but the fear that a brand's customers would feel after hearing their private information was compromised. As soon as Brixton's website was compromised, panic set in. The brand, once trusted by thousands, was now at the mercy of a social media crisis. Her followers began posting on Brixton's page, urging the company to own up to their mistakes and accusing them of stealing data. Others started calling for a boycott of the brand entirely. It was a well-crafted crisis that no one could escape from easily. Lara was playing a dangerous game, and she was winning. Once the scandal was in full swing, Lara saw an opportunity to make a substantial profit. The chaos was at its peak, and Brixton was scrambling to regain control. It was the perfect time for Lara to strike. She sent a carefully worded email to Lena Rodriguez, Brixton's CEO, demanding a $100,000 payment for damage control. The email read, "Lena, you have a serious problem on your hands. Your website has been compromised, and your brand's reputation is being dragged through the mud. I am your best shot at fixing this. For the low price of $100,000, I can help you repair the damage. If you don't pay, I will continue to expose your brand, and the damage will only grow. Let me know how you'd like to proceed." The extortion threat was clear. Lara knew the power she held over the company. At this point, Brixton had no choice but to either comply or face complete destruction. The $100,000 seemed like a small price to pay to avoid total ruin. Lena, panic-stricken and unsure of what to do, tried to contact her legal team, but the damage was already done. Word of the hack had spread to the media, and the negative reviews were already flooding in. The company's stock was plummeting, and any chance of turning things around seemed bleak. The situation was spiraling out of control. Lena Rodriguez, Brixton Cosmetics CEO, was one of the first people to fully comprehend the scale of the extortion that Lara Winters was orchestrating. The messages and phone calls from customers were overwhelming. The press was breathing down their necks. It didn't take long for Lena to realize that her company's future was hanging by a thread. In an emotional interview, Lena described the terror she felt during those days. It was chaos. We had never seen anything like this. The negative reviews were one thing, but once the hack happened and our customers' personal information was exposed, I knew we were in trouble. I tried to fix it by reaching out to our PR team, but the damage was already done. Then, Lara sent that email. It was a threat. She made it clear. Pay up, or your brand will be finished. Lena continued, recounting the moment when she realized she had no choice but to pay the ransom. She said, "Pay me $100,000 or watch your brand fall apart." The worst part was, I didn't even know how she had that power. She wasn't just an influencer, she was running an extortion racket, and she was using her platform to destroy us. The desperation in Lena's voice was palpable. Brixton Cosmetics had spent years building its brand, and in a matter of days, Lara Winters had brought it to the brink of collapse. $100,000 wasn't just money, it was the price of survival. Lena reluctantly wired the money, hoping that the extortion would stop. But little did she know, this was just the beginning of Lara's scheme. As Brixton complied, Lara saw how easy it was to manipulate companies and influencers. The $100,000 ransom was just the start of her dark reign over the influencer world. As Lara's power grew, so did her tactics. She didn't just stop at one company. She extended her web to small businesses and up-and-coming influencers, creating fake scandals, hacking websites, and generating fake reviews. She wasn't simply promoting products anymore. She was controlling reputations, making millions off fear and manipulation. Can you imagine the pressure these businesses must have felt? What would you do if you were in their shoes, watching your reputation crumble in front of millions? After her initial success with Brixton Cosmetics, Lara Winters quickly realized that her scheme could be expanded beyond just one victim. What started as a carefully planned attack on one skincare company soon grew into a full-blown extortion network, where Lara targeted multiple brands and influencers to line her pockets with hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. Each new victim was lured into her trap in the same way, a well-crafted product promotion that turned into a scandal, followed by an impossible-to-ignore ransom demand. In a world where brand image was everything, Lara's influence was a weapon many businesses and influencers couldn't afford to ignore. Lara's success wasn't just about the big names. It was the smaller, lesser-known brands that were most vulnerable to her tactics. They didn't have the massive PR teams or legal resources to fight back, and their entire existence depended on their reputation. When Lara set her sights on these companies, they quickly fell into her trap. For example, Pure Glow Skincare, a family-owned business that had only recently gained traction in the natural beauty market, was one of Lara's next victims. The owners, desperate to increase sales, partnered with Lara for a series of Instagram posts and product reviews. At first, everything seemed perfect. Lara's audience responded positively, and sales spiked. But when a minor delay in product delivery occurred, Lara seized on the opportunity to create a controversy. Using her online influence, Lara fabricated complaints from customers who claimed that their orders hadn't arrived on time, even though the issues were logistical and not the brand's fault. Lara then posted a story about how the company was untrustworthy and failed to deliver, even including a screenshot of the supposed customer complaint. The post went viral. Hundreds of followers commented, sharing their own horror stories, even though many of these stories were fabricated or exaggerated. The damage was immediate. Within hours, Pure Glow's website crashed, and the owners received emails from customers demanding refunds. What Lara had started as a minor issue quickly escalated into a major scandal. What made Lara's tactics so effective and terrifying was her ability to create and manipulate online narratives with surgical precision. Her influence over her followers and the digital space was immense, and she knew exactly how to exploit it. One of the key tools in Lara's arsenal was fake product reviews. She knew that online reviews, whether they were for products, services, or even people, held an incredible amount of power in today's digital world. Positive reviews could skyrocket a business's success, while negative reviews could ruin it. Lara started planting fake reviews, not just on product websites, but also on social media, forums, and even third-party review platforms. She'd create fake accounts that pretended to be dissatisfied customers and post damaging comments that questioned the legitimacy of the products. But Lara didn't stop at just reviews. She knew that staged feuds could amplify the damage. For example, Lara would go to great lengths to create feuds between influencers, or between influencers and brands. She would privately message influencers, whispering about how another influencer was talking behind their back, or how a certain brand was exploiting its followers. These subtle suggestions would often lead to public disputes between influencers, and each time one of these conflicts went viral, Lara's control over the situation grew stronger. When the influencers or brands caught wind of the drama, they would often reach out to Lara for a solution. At that point, Lara would tell them exactly what they needed to do to stop the controversy from escalating. The price for peace? Thousands of dollars. One of the most notorious cases involved a well-known fitness influencer, Tasha Clark. Lara, knowing that Tasha was promoting a fitness supplement brand, used her platform to create a conflict between Tasha and a competing brand. She sent fake emails to Tasha's management team, claiming that the competitor had badmouthed her products on an industry forum. The email contained fake evidence, which Lara had fabricated herself. Tasha, upon seeing the evidence, posted a furious message on her Instagram, accusing the rival brand of trying to undermine her reputation. The post went viral, with followers quickly jumping to Tasha's defense, attacking the competitor online. However, Lara privately reached out to both brands involved, offering to settle the feud in exchange for a significant sum of money. Tasha's brand ended up paying Lara to smooth things over, and the rival brand, fearing further damage, did the same. Lara had created a scandal out of thin air and then charged both sides to fix it. As Lara's extortion network grew, the damage she caused was felt far beyond just the businesses and influencers she manipulated. The victims came from all corners of the digital world: small businesses, up-and-coming influencers, and major corporations who failed to understand just how much power Lara held in her hands. One of the more heart-wrenching stories came from Emily Stone, a boutique clothing store owner based in New York City. Emily's store, Luxe Chic Boutique, had been struggling to compete in a highly saturated market. In an attempt to increase her brand awareness, Emily hired Lara to promote her clothing line. Lara's posts were beautiful and elegant, and Emily's sales skyrocketed. However, when Lara failed to meet some of her post deadlines, Emily began to push for a conversation about her contract and the missing posts. Instead of addressing the concerns, Lara created a fake story about how Emily had been treating her poorly behind the scenes. Lara's followers, always eager for drama, picked up the narrative. The story spread quickly, and soon, Emily's reputation was under attack. People began posting about her bad customer service and unprofessionalism despite no real evidence. Emily's once thriving boutique began to receive negative reviews on social media and on Yelp. She lost customers, and eventually, sales plummeted to the point where she had to close her business. She didn't just want money. She wanted control. And once you're in her grip, it's impossible to escape, Emily said in a tearful interview. I felt like I was drowning. One day, my business was thriving, and the next, it was gone. And all because of one post, one moment when I trusted the wrong person. Lara's ability to manipulate wasn't just about money, it was about power. She used her platform to disrupt the lives of countless victims, destroying businesses, careers, and relationships along the way. She was no longer just an influencer. She was a force of destruction, using her audience as a weapon to achieve her financial goals. Her scheme continued to expand as she targeted other influencers, brands, and even large corporations. Companies that once relied on influencers to boost their visibility now feared them, knowing that the power of a single post could lead to catastrophic consequences. The world of digital marketing, once a haven for businesses looking to build brand awareness, had now become a minefield, where one wrong move could lead to an expensive ransom. Lara's network of extortion grew larger with each passing month. With every victim, the amounts she demanded became more substantial. It was no longer just about 100,000. It was about complete control over the digital landscape. Lara knew how to manipulate both the public and private aspects of her victims' lives. She had turned her influence into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, built on lies, deceit, and threats. But just as Lara's network of extortion seemed unstoppable, cracks began to appear in her carefully constructed empire. And as we'll see in the next section, it wasn't long before her victims and the authorities started to catch on. Enter Detective Emma Martinez, who was brought in to untangle the mess that Lara had created. The investigation was far from straightforward. After all, how could one individual, an influencer, be behind such a vast operation? The first time Detective Emma Martinez heard about the extortion scheme, she didn't know what to make of it. Cybercrimes were often complicated, and cases involving influencers, hackers, and online scams were especially difficult to piece together. The world of social media, with its virtual anonymity and complex digital networks, made it hard to separate real criminals from those simply trying to make a name for themselves. Was Lara Winters just another influencer who had stepped over the line? Or was she orchestrating something far bigger, something that could affect thousands, if not millions? Detective Martinez had been with the Cybercrime Division for over 10 years. She had worked on high-profile cases involving fraud, hacking, and digital manipulation. But even with her experience, this case felt different. The way Lara manipulated both the digital and physical worlds was unsettling. She wasn't just a person running a scam from a basement somewhere. She was using her massive online platform to prey on people, destroy businesses, and create chaos on a global scale. At first, Martinez thought this was just a series of isolated incidents, one or two small businesses falling victim to a manipulative influencer. But as the case files piled up, the pattern became undeniable. Lara Winters wasn't just taking money. She was running a complex, organized scheme that spanned multiple industries, influencers, and companies. This wasn't a small-time scam. This was digital extortion on an unprecedented scale. Detective Martinez's first step in the investigation was to piece together the chaos that Lara had left behind. The victims, though scattered across different industries, all reported similar stories: sudden, viral controversies, fake reviews, and ransom demands from an influencer with seemingly limitless power. As the team began to investigate, the complexity of the case became apparent. Cybercrimes, especially those involving extortion and hacking, were notoriously difficult to trace. Lara had taken steps to hide her tracks, using VPNs, proxy servers, and encrypted communication channels to avoid detection. She also employed multiple fake identities across social media platforms, making it hard to pinpoint who was behind each attack. The first breakthrough came when one of Lara's victims, Lena Rodriguez, the CEO of Brixton Cosmetics, decided to cooperate with the authorities. After receiving a threatening email from Lara demanding money in exchange for stopping the smear campaign, Lena had collected evidence. In the midst of the crisis, she had saved all the communications, emails, bank receipts, and screenshots of the fraudulent customer complaints that Lara had fabricated. The evidence wasn't enough to charge Lara directly, but it gave the investigators a starting point. They began to track down the digital trail left behind by Lara. They traced the IP addresses used in the threatening emails, which led them to servers in different countries. Each step brought them closer to uncovering the full scope of the scheme. But each step also revealed just how deep and far-reaching Lara's network was. As the investigation progressed, the police team focused on Lara's financial transactions. They discovered a pattern in the payments. Lara's extortion victims, mostly businesses and influencers, had been funneling money to her through wire transfers and cryptocurrency exchanges. These payments were often disguised as legitimate sponsorship fees or consultation payments. Lara had covered her tracks well, but the money trail was beginning to surface. Investigators were able to track several wire transfers that were linked back to accounts in her name, though the names on the accounts weren't immediately recognizable. The investigation team soon realized that Lara's publicist, Megan Watts, had played a pivotal role in helping Lara launder the extorted funds. Watts had set up several offshore accounts to funnel the money, making it harder for authorities to track. The breakthrough came when investigators uncovered a series of encrypted messages between Lara and Megan Watts. The messages were coded, but after analyzing the data, they realized that Lara had been coordinating the extortion scheme with a level of precision that was both frightening and impressive. The messages confirmed their suspicions. Lara had masterminded the entire operation, using her influence to manipulate businesses, celebrities, and even other influencers. She was pulling the strings from behind the scenes, using her platform as a weapon. The pivotal moment of the investigation came when one of Lara's victims, the CEO of Luxe Chic Boutique, Emily Stone, came forward with new evidence. Emily, a boutique owner from New York, had been another target of Lara's extortion tactics. After her store's reputation was maliciously attacked by Lara's fake reviews, Emily took screenshots of the communication she had received from Lara's team. In one of these messages, Lara demanded $50,000 to stop the negative campaign she had launched. Emily had hesitated, but she later decided to forward these communications to the authorities. When Detective Martinez and her team reviewed the emails, they noticed a familiar pattern. The emails were sent from the same encrypted servers they had traced earlier. Even more crucial was the discovery that Megan Watts, Lara's publicist, had been included in several of these communications. The money trail now connected to Megan, leading investigators to the realization that Lara had not been working alone. She had a whole network of accomplices helping her execute these scams. In one of the most telling pieces of evidence, a bank receipt from a wire transfer showed that $75,000 had been paid to one of Lara's accounts just days after Emily had been extorted. The payment was traced back to a business account that was under the control of Megan Watts. The breakthrough was monumental. The investigators now had enough evidence to link Lara directly to the series of extortion schemes. The once elusive influencer was no longer just a figure in the digital world. She was a criminal mastermind at the center of a massive criminal enterprise. With the evidence now in place, the authorities began making preparations for the final raid on Lara's apartment. The SWAT team was called in, and a coordinated operation was set in motion. Lara Winters, the woman who had deceived so many with her carefully crafted online persona, was about to be exposed to the world as a cybercriminal mastermind. The build-up to the raid was intense. Detective Martinez, now confident that Lara was directly responsible for the massive scheme, worked alongside federal agents and cybercrime experts. They planned the raid meticulously, knowing that any mistake could alert Lara and allow her to escape. The raid was scheduled for the early hours of the morning, when Lara would be least likely to anticipate an arrest. In the days leading up to the operation, the team gathered intelligence on Lara's lifestyle, her routines, her whereabouts, and the security systems in her apartment. Lara had no idea that she was about to be caught. Lara's apartment was located in a luxurious part of the city, complete with state-of-the-art security. But it didn't matter how secure her apartment was. The authorities were ready. Detective Martinez and the team had their eyes on every exit, every possible route. They weren't going to let Lara slip through their fingers. The raid was set to unfold like a high-stakes operation, precise, calculated, and quick. The team arrived at Lara's building at 4 a.m., and by 4:15 they were inside. Lara was found at her desk, her computer open in front of her, with her digital empire still intact, but no longer under her control. The arrest was swift, and Lara Winters was led out of her apartment in handcuffs. The digital empire she had built on lies came crashing down in that moment. Lara Winters, once adored by millions, was now facing charges that could send her to prison for the rest of her life. The morning of the raid was like any other for Lara. Little did she know, as she sat in her luxury apartment, scrolling through her social media, that officers were closing in. SWAT teams, armed and ready, stormed her apartment, catching her completely off guard. As the door crashed open, Lara's world came crashing down with it. She hadn't expected the authorities to close in on her so quickly. The shocking arrest would be the first of many events that would unravel her twisted empire. What would you do if you were suddenly faced with the law knocking on your door, knowing the entire world would soon find out your secrets? The early morning air was thick with anticipation as the SWAT team moved quietly through the quiet corridors of the luxury high-rise building. Lara Winters, the influencer who had once captivated millions with her seemingly flawless lifestyle, was about to be caught. Her digital empire, built on extortion and manipulation, was about to come crashing down. At exactly 4 a.m., the operation was in full swing. The SWAT officers, clad in tactical gear, surrounded the building. Detective Emma Martinez, leading the operation, watched from a van parked a few streets away. Through her earpiece, she heard the officers take their positions, preparing for the moment when they would breach the door of Lara's apartment. Lara's apartment was located on the top floor of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. It was a place that screamed wealth and influence. An apartment filled with high-end furniture, designer art, and a panoramic view of the skyline. It was the perfect reflection of the life Lara had sold to the world. Inside, Lara Winters sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her attention was elsewhere. She had no idea that her world was about to shatter. Her apartment, though luxurious, was eerily quiet. The faint hum of a high-end air purifier and the low buzz of a nearby light fixture were the only sounds in the room. The moment of the raid was imminent. At 4:15, the officers took action. The door to Lara's apartment was kicked in with precision. The force of the breach was followed by the loud crash of the door splintering under the pressure. It was a swift, calculated operation designed to catch Lara off guard. No time for questions, no time for negotiation. Lara's calm demeanor evaporated in an instant. She looked up in shock as armed officers stormed into the apartment, their weapons raised. "Lara Winters," one of the officers called out, "you are under arrest for multiple counts of extortion, cybercrime, and money laundering." Lara froze, her eyes widening as the reality of the situation settled in. She had been expecting many things: haters, media backlash, maybe even a temporary investigation, but this was different. This was the law. The moment she had spent years evading had finally arrived. The officers swiftly moved to secure the apartment. One officer began to sift through the papers on her desk, noticing multiple documents that laid bare the full extent of Lara's extortion scheme. Emails, bank transfer receipts, fake reviews, and a list of extorted businesses were all neatly organized in front of her. Lara's operation, once hidden in plain sight, was now exposed to the authorities. One officer quickly snapped a picture of her laptop screen, showing a file labeled Payment History Extortion, which contained records of payments made to her by multiple businesses and influencers, all under duress. These documents were the smoking gun that tied her directly to the crimes. Lara didn't resist. She had no choice but to comply. The weight of the situation was now inescapable. The fear that had been building in her chest finally surfaced. Her empire, the empire built on manipulation, extortion, and blackmail, was coming down around her. Lara's reaction to the raid was chilling in its calmness. For a moment, she sat there, staring at the officers, her expression unreadable. It was as if she couldn't quite process what was happening. After all, she had built her empire with careful planning and precision. She had manipulated millions of people, outwitted brands, and exploited her massive social media following. She was used to control, used to having the upper hand. Now, for the first time, she found herself powerless. When one officer reached out to handcuff her, Lara didn't fight back. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the evidence. Her empire, The very thing she had crafted so carefully was now exposed. She was caught. As the officers placed her hands behind her back and clicked the cold metal cuffs into place, she finally spoke. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with a sense of disbelief. One of the officers replied calmly, "You'll be taken into custody. You'll have your day in court." Lara's lips tightened, and she nodded. She was silent as she was led out of the apartment. No outbursts, no attempts to escape. She simply accepted her fate, resigned to the fact that her carefully built persona had been shattered in one fell swoop. News of Lara Winters' arrest spread like wildfire. The digital world that had once been her domain was now turning on her. Headlines quickly flooded the internet. Influencer Lara Winters arrested for $600,000 a month extortion scheme. Social media star behind massive cybercrime syndicate exposed. The truth behind Lara Winters' rise and fall. In the age of social media, news travels fast. Within minutes, tweets, Instagram posts, and TikTok videos began to surface, some expressing shock, others uttered disbelief. The very people who had once looked up to Lara as a role model were now questioning everything. "No way. I followed Lara for years. This is crazy. I can't believe I bought into her fake persona. She ruined so many people. I always thought something was off about her. I can't believe it's all true." The media was equally swift. Journalists flooded the newsrooms, eager to report on the arrest of one of the most influential figures in the digital space. What had once been a beloved influencer was now the face of digital crime, and everyone wanted to know how she had pulled it off. But there was another side to the public reaction. Victims of Lara's scheme came forward, their voices filled with anger and relief. For the first time, they felt like they had been heard. The brands, influencers, businesses that had been manipulated into paying Lara were able to breathe a collective sigh of relief, knowing that justice was finally being served. One victim, Lena Rodriguez, the CEO of Brixton Cosmetics, posted a statement on social media. "Today, justice has been served. I can't begin to describe the relief I feel, knowing that the person who caused so much damage to our business is finally facing the consequences. I hope this serves as a warning to anyone who thinks they can use their influence for evil." The impact of Lara's arrest reverberated far beyond her victims. The influencer world would never be the same. Brands began rethinking their approach to influencer marketing, tightening regulations and putting more stringent checks in place to avoid future exploitation. Lara Winters' arrest was a turning point in the influencer world. What had once been a space dominated by glamour, trust, and aspiration was now exposed as a place where manipulation, extortion, and financial crimes could thrive. The digital age had allowed Lara to rise to unprecedented heights, but it was also the thing that ultimately led to her downfall. For Lara, the luxury apartment, the designer clothes, and the millions of followers were all part of a carefully constructed lie. Behind the filters, the smiling selfies, and the brand endorsements, there was a person who was willing to go to any lengths to maintain her power. And now that lie had been exposed, leaving behind a trail of destruction in its wake. The world may never forget Lara Winters' name, but for all the wrong reasons. In the courtroom, the victims who had fallen prey to Lara's manipulation came forward to testify. Each one of them shared the emotional and financial toll of her actions. From small businesses facing bankruptcy to influencers who were blackmailed into paying Lara to protect their careers, it was clear Lara had left a trail of destruction. These stories are heartbreaking, aren't they? It's one thing to lose money, but the emotional toll? That's something most people can't recover from. But Lara was about to face the consequences. The trial of Lara Winters began with intense media scrutiny. What had once been a story about a social media star and influencer suddenly became one of the most significant cases in the digital age. A case that raised questions about the power of influencers and the dark side of social media marketing. Lara, who had once been the face of flawless beauty and success, now found herself in the defendant's chair. She sat in a court in front of a judge, flanked by her defense team, as the prosecution laid out the evidence against her. The prosecution's case was built on the numerous testimonies of Lara's victims, each one detailing the ways she had manipulated, extorted, and blackmailed businesses and influencers. Emails, wire transfers, and recorded conversations were presented as proof that Lara had systematically used her online influence to manipulate her victims into paying her money in exchange for damage control. The case was compelling. The evidence was overwhelming. It was clear that Lara had orchestrated one of the largest online extortion schemes ever uncovered. But despite the undeniable evidence, Lara's defense team attempted to shift the narrative. They argued that Lara had only been exercising her influence as a successful influencer and that the charges against her were exaggerated. They painted her as a misunderstood businesswoman, someone who had only made a few bad decisions in her pursuit of success. Her defense attorney stood before the jury and said, "Lara Winters is not a criminal. She built a business empire from scratch. She is a pioneer in the digital world, using her platform to connect with millions of people. The actions that are being presented as extortion were, in fact, her attempt to protect her brand and make sure her business partnerships were being respected." But the prosecution's case was far stronger. Lara had used her platform, a platform that had been built on trust, to exploit people. The prosecution detailed how Lara had manipulated small businesses, up-and-coming influencers, and even major corporations. She had used her huge following to create fake controversies and falsified complaints to extort money from those who were too terrified to fight back. The testimony from the victims was what truly turned the tide in the case. Lena Rodriguez, the CEO of Brixton Cosmetics, gave a tearful account of the damage Lara had done to her business. "I had worked my entire life to build Brixton Cosmetics. We were a small, family-owned business trying to make a name for ourselves. Then Lara came along. She promised us exposure, she promised us growth. But when we disagreed on a payment plan, she turned on us. She threatened to destroy everything we worked for. She wasn't just trying to get money, she was trying to destroy us. I had to watch my company crumble because I didn't know how to fight back." The testimonies were filled with similar stories. Small businesses who had been financially ruined, influencers who had been blackmailed, and brand owners who had been extorted for millions of dollars. Each victim described the emotional toll Lara's actions had taken on them, from sleepless nights to the stress of watching their livelihoods vanish. Emily Stone, the owner of Luxe Chic Boutique, another of Lara's victims, explained how her business had been nearly destroyed by Lara's smear campaign. "I started my business from the ground up. It was my dream to create something special. Lara promised to help me, but when things went wrong, she destroyed me. She made me look like a fraud. She took everything I worked for. And I had no choice but to pay her. I was trapped." These victim testimonies, coupled with the overwhelming digital evidence, painted a clear picture of Lara's criminal activities. The court saw Lara not as a victim of circumstance, but as someone who actively sought to exploit others for personal gain. After weeks of emotional testimony and mounting evidence, the jury deliberated. The verdict was clear. Lara Winters was guilty on multiple counts of extortion, cybercrime, and money laundering. On the charge of extortion, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of cybercrime, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom went silent. Lara's fate had been sealed. In the sentencing phase, the judge weighed Lara's wealth, the harm she caused, and the scope of her crimes. The families who had been affected, the businesses that had been driven to the brink of bankruptcy, and the countless individuals who had been forced to live in fear of Lara's digital power were all considered. Finally, after a long pause, the judge spoke. "Lara Winters, you have been convicted of a series of serious crimes. Your actions have caused untold damage to individuals, families, and businesses. You have used your influence, your platform, and your power to extort millions of dollars from unsuspecting people, ruining their lives and livelihoods. Given the severity of your crimes, the court sentences you to 15 years in prison." Lara Winters sat motionless as the sentence was read. The woman who had once been a social media mogul, a symbol of wealth, beauty, and success, was now just another convict in the system. Her empire, built on lies and manipulation, had crumbled. The life she had worked so hard to build was now nothing more than a distant memory. The media went into overdrive. News outlets around the world began reporting on the conviction. with some expressing shock at the scale of the extortion scheme, while others decried the ease with which Lara had used her influence to manipulate people. The public's reaction was one of disbelief, mixed with anger. How had someone like Lara, someone trusted by millions, become a criminal? Lara's conviction sent shockwaves through the world of social media and digital marketing. The influencer industry, which had once been seen as an unregulated space full of opportunity, was now under scrutiny like never before. Brands that had once flocked to influencers to boost their image and sales began to rethink their marketing strategies. Many companies, wary of becoming the next victims of digital extortion, started implementing more rigorous vetting processes for influencers. Contracts became longer, and clauses about ethical behavior and compliance were inserted to protect brands from extortion. Brands started to shift away from influencers who had the potential to wield too much power over public perception. The influence that had once been seen as a valuable asset in marketing now had to be handled carefully and with much more accountability. Companies began to recognize that the line between promotion and manipulation was dangerously thin. But it wasn't just the businesses that were impacted. The entire influencer culture was shaken to its core. Influencers who had once prided themselves on their authenticity and connection with their audiences now faced questions about their true intentions. Lara's case became a wake-up call for the influencer community. It was a reminder that power in the digital age could be abused in ways that were almost impossible to detect until it was too late. The case also prompted discussions about the regulation of influencers. Laws were proposed in several countries to increase transparency and accountability in the industry. These laws would require influencers to disclose paid promotions more thoroughly and hold them accountable for the content they published, especially when it could potentially harm others. As Lara was led away to prison, her legacy was forever changed. The influencer who had once inspired millions was now the face of digital crime. Her arrest and conviction had not only brought down her empire, but also triggered industry-wide changes that would alter the future of online marketing. The case of Lara Winters serves as a stark reminder of how far the misuse of influence can go in the digital age. What began as a young woman leveraging her platform for personal gain ended up as a high-profile criminal case that exposed the vulnerabilities of the influencer industry. Lara's fall from grace was swift and unforgiving, and her 15-year sentence was a stark reflection of the severity of her crimes. In the aftermath, the world of influencers was forced to reckon with the darker side of social media, and brands had to rethink how they approached influencer marketing. The digital world, once seen as a space of endless opportunities, was now under greater scrutiny, and the actions of one individual had changed it forever. As for Lara, her once thriving career in the digital world was gone, and in its place was a long, uncertain future behind bars. Lara Winters used her platform to deceive, control, and manipulate, ultimately leading to the downfall of her empire. This case serves as a reminder that the digital world is not just a space for influencers and followers, but also a place of great power and great risk. Influence can build, but it can also destroy. The story of Lara Winters is one that seems almost unbelievable at first. How could someone who had once been adored by millions, someone who built an empire based on trust and authenticity, turn into a criminal mastermind who preyed on businesses and influencers? How could someone with so much influence and power use it to harm others, manipulate them, and extort millions of dollars? But the truth is, Lara's story is not as unique as it may seem. The digital age has given rise to an entirely new kind of power, one that operates primarily in the virtual world. In the past, power was tied to traditional institutions, governments, or physical resources. Now, power is in the hands of influencers, content creators, and people who can command attention from millions with the tap of a finger. Lara Winters used the trust and influence she built online through carefully curated posts, charming videos, and the image of a perfect life to manipulate and blackmail others. She was able to create fabricated scandals, spark fake controversies, and exploit her massive following to demand money from those who feared the consequences of her online wrath. This case serves as a warning. The digital world, filled with influencers and social media platforms, is not just a playground for fun and entertainment. It is a place where real power exists, and with that power comes the potential for great harm. The ability to shape public opinion, manipulate perceptions, and exploit the trust of millions makes the digital world just as dangerous as the physical one. The reality is that many of us often place trust in online personas. We follow influencers, engage with their content, and even buy the products they promote. We trust these people because they have built a relationship with us, a relationship that often feels more personal than we realize. But what happens when that trust is abused? When the people we trust turn out to be exploiting us for their own gain? Lara Winters showed us how fragile that trust can be. Behind her smiling selfies and luxurious lifestyle, there was a person who was willing to destroy lives for financial gain. She exploited the very system that allowed her to rise to fame, turning her influence into a weapon. And this is a danger we all need to understand. As we continue to build our online lives, as we follow more influencers and engage with more content, we need to ask ourselves, who's really behind the screen? What are their intentions? Are they truly trying to help us, or are they using their influence for personal gain? This is not just about one influencer who crossed the line. It's about understanding the power that these individuals hold and the potential for abuse that exists within the very system that allows them to thrive. Lara Winters used her influence to harm others, but she was far from the only one with this ability. The digital age is filled with people who wield incredible power over public perception, and not all of them use that power responsibly. In the pursuit of fame and fortune, some will go to extreme lengths to keep their grip on power. The journey to success in the digital world can be thrilling. It offers opportunities that never existed before. Influencers can become millionaires by sharing their lives online, marketing products, and shaping trends. But with that success comes a temptation that few can resist: the temptation to use power for personal gain. For some, fame and fortune become more than just goals, they become obsessions. In Lara's case, she began by offering her followers a glimpse into a world of luxury and beauty. What she didn't show was the darker side, the manipulation, the blackmail, and the control that fueled her rise. As she gained more followers and earned more money, her influence grew, and so did her desire to maintain that power at any cost. What Lara's story shows us is just how far someone can go when they begin to see their influence as an unbreakable force, something that can be used to manipulate, deceive, and exploit. She didn't just want money, she wanted control. She wanted the ability to make or break businesses, to shape public opinion, and to keep those who disagreed with her under her thumb. She saw her followers not as people, but as pawns in her game of power. But in the end, Lara's obsession with control led to her downfall. Her empire crumbled, not because she lacked the skills to deceive, but because she underestimated the consequences of her actions. The law caught up with her, and the very influence that once elevated her to unimaginable heights was the thing that ultimately brought her crashing down. So, what can we learn from Lara's fall from grace? We learn that influence is powerful, but it can be a double-edged sword. The power to shape opinions, influence purchasing decisions, and control narratives is immense, but it must be handled with responsibility. Trust is the foundation of all online relationships, and when that trust is abused, the consequences are far-reaching. Lara Winters thought she could manipulate others without consequence, but in the end, her actions led to her destruction. For us, the audience, Lara's story is a cautionary tale. The next time you see an influencer promoting a product, or when you follow someone's journey online, remember that behind the screen, they hold power, and that power can be used for good or for ill. Influencers have the ability to shape our perceptions, and while many use that influence responsibly, some may exploit it for their own benefit. As we continue to navigate the digital world, we must learn to question everything. Who is behind the screen? What are their true motivations? Are they trying to enrich our lives, or are they simply looking to control us? Lara Winters abused her platform and became a cautionary tale for us all. But her story isn't unique. We must stay vigilant and aware of how influence operates in the digital age, knowing that the line between trust and manipulation is often thin. Next time you click on a sponsored post or engage with an influencer's content, ask yourself, who's really behind the screen? Because the digital world may be more dangerous than we think. And Lara Winters is a stark reminder of just how far people will go to maintain their grip on power. If this story shocked you, hit that like button. Share with friends who need to know the truth about the darker side of influencer culture, and subscribe for more true crime stories. And next time you see an influencer promoting a product or giving advice, ask yourself, what's behind the screen? Who's really pulling the strings? Let's discuss it in the comments below.